Here's a story from the Post-Millennial. FBI releases 112 pages of writing from Nashville trans school shooter showing maps, faculty lists, and anti-Christian diatribes. They said the FBI on Thursday released over 100 pages, of course 112, related to the Nashville Covenant School shooting, which killed 3 children and 3 staff members. 112 pages released by the FBI were found by law enforcement in Hale's car. The release comes after a long legal battle by Tennessee Star and the Tennessee Firearms Association to make the documents available to the public. Among the pages released by the FBI were redacted pages that had maps of the Covenant School, including the first floor and second floor, as well as lists of faculty members at the school and dates that the school was on break for the 22-23 school calendar. Hale wrote about being born wrong, scribbling on one page, "Why does my brain not work right? Because I was born wrong." A sketch of pages includes notes on the beginning shooters and defensive pistol, etc. They go on to mention that there was, of course, anti-Christian diatribes. And I guess for personal and professional reasons, we're not going to show the manifesto. It's available at the Post-Millennial for those that want to go through these pages, but we're not going to dive into that other than to talk about the reason why this was covered up. And in my opinion, it's because of 2 principal things. One, the anti-Christian bias. This is hate crime territory. This should be listed among all of these NGOs that track all the hate and everything as anti-Christian hatred. Of course, that's never going to make the press because it goes against the narrative. And then the other issue, of course, was the leftist ideology of being born wrong, resulting in this person engaging in this kind of behavior is damaging to the leftist gender narrative and blank slate narrative. So the FBI at the time was probably like, let's just not show anybody this. But as most people know, if they don't disclose the identity of the individual, depending on the story, people make assumptions about what the race of the person would be. So whenever there's a story and it says a white man did a thing, people are like, oh, okay. And then if they don't mention the race, people make assumptions like, I have a feeling, right?
That's the Ann Coulter rule, right?
Is it?
It kind of is the Ann Coulter rule, yeah.
Did she make that up or what?
It was always referred to me as the Ann Coulter rule.
Yeah. I think she might be the first person to have actually articulated it. It was kind of like people kind of had that sense, and she was the first person to kind of like be like, hey.
To say it out loud?
Yeah, well, actually articulate it and make it a thing.
In Sweden, there was a, I think it might have been an Afghan national who was in the country, committed some crime. And so they blurred the person, but then changed the pixelated colors of the skin to a white person.
Oh.
Yeah.
They've also they've lightened pictures for people who are of a certain skin tone.
Why are you looking at me like that?
I'm just looking around.
Oh, okay.
The thing
That's what happens when people talk to you.
Is that what it is? I don't know. There was a conversation where you weren't here yet. That's why you missed this.
Fair enough.
The thing that I find is that this is the first thing you start to realize once you start actually paying attention to the news and seeing the way that they twist the truth and lie by omission and lie by structure, is that you start looking for what's missing in an article rather than what's there. And this is one of the easiest ways to tell whether that's happening, is what's left out of the headline of an article. Whether somebody's mentioned is their race, their gender, things like that.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I mean,
the issue, of course, here being this is damaging to the left social order. And so here's a great point, right? The ADL has their hate map. They call it a heat map. And right wing is listed as anti-government, white supremacist, and other.
What the hell's other?
They just basically are like, we're going to call every act of violence right wing.
Perfect.
And then this is what they do. The left is a monolith of goodness, and anything bad is right wing.
Totally.
I'm like, right wing anarchists are the same thing as like authoritarian white supremacists. How is that right wing? Doesn't matter.
It's all just a narrative building device. The point is anything that is bad or violent or looked at as antisocial, that is just classified as right wing. Whether or not it's actually right wing is irrelevant. The point is to classify it as right wing, get people to talk about it as right wing, and kind of speak it into existence. The left loves to do that with any number of topics, but when it comes to violence in particular, they really do. That anything that isn't overtly and undeniably left-wing, they classify as right-wing.
It also speaks to, you said that you talked about the leftist idea of being born in the wrong body. And how old was the shooter? I forget how old the shooter was.
She was a teenager.
Like, you take so much of the confusion and the kind of angst that comes from being a young, a teenager, a child, and you've turned it into this hyper politicized means of control over the population that it's actually far more evil when you think about what they've done to just the normal pangs of growing up and being a teenager.
Well, they've made it significantly worse to the point in which you get shooters like this. This probably, I'd argue it might not have happened if we weren't living in this kind of age that we are now. When individuals are constantly slow dripped the idea they're in the wrong body, it's going to create this more than just like your what would you call that? More than just like delusion in your mind, but you're constantly fed this information that just is making you question your entire existence and your entire reality. How could this not be caused by these left ideas and slow dripped into these children and not? How are we not taking accountability for what we're teaching them and going, oh, they're shooters? Of course they are.
The left still hasn't acknowledged that to tell children that they're born in the wrong body is detrimental to children's development. We had someone on this morning on the culture war defending.
I heard.
Defending the idea that trans children exist and that it's better to help transition teenagers and stuff, and it's just absolutely not.
No, I don't. I think she deflected on the issue of children.
Oh, did she?
Yeah, because she kept going back to adults, and I was like, we don't disagree. Like,
but what
conservatives might, I don't know.
But when you say children, what was her classification in terms of age for children?
Minor or
okay, but what's minor? Because minor can be very, very different in a lot of places.
17 and under. But we're talking about the United States.
No, fair enough. No, but I'm saying though, even in the United States, for them to classify, right? So it's like for hormones, they'll only give, I think it's above 8 years old, they consider minors to be very specific. And that's why I'm asking, like, if she was going to say, no, it's adults only, but what is, because the left a lot of times deems children to be, have the ability to make decisions that are far outside their ability. Like, there's just no way cognitively they can.
Particularly when it's convenient for them. They want children to vote. They want to say that children can make decisions that would take them away from their family, take the power away from the authority away from their parents. But when it comes to things like, who's dating who, people in their 20s are like, oh, well, I didn't know. Or when you're out in the real world and it's like, well, you have responsibilities. Oh, well, I heard a woman one time say, and this could be just an anomaly, but a woman said, I am just a 27-year-old teenage girl.
Okay.
And that's
like a viral video?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. And it really kind of shocked me, but at the same time, it's something that you do hear a lot. People don't want to acknowledge that they're adults in their mid to upper 20s. But again, this is all a mechanism of convenience. It's when it's convenient to say, no, I'm not an adult. Or when it's convenient to say, well, those children actually should be allowed to vote because they're 16 and, well, they're the ones that have the most, go on the line because they're young and they have their whole lives. So bad policies now are going to affect them most.
But then, of course, when they finish college and they want you to pay their loans back, they say, I didn't understand what I was getting into when I took out those student loans. It is a mechanism of power.
Yeah, it's a mechanism to avoid responsibility, which is something the left loves to do. Something that I think there are probably a lot of groups of people that love to do it. And you see it not just you bring up the school stuff. There's other cases where they're doing that too. I'm sorry, I had a specific issue I was going to bring up, but I totally slipped my mind now. So if someone's got something else, please.
Well, that's it. The conversation's over.
Done. My fault. My bad.
Phil is the one who made me realize that sometimes you can just forget your thought and be like, lost it. Go on. Like otherwise, I'm like, get it. Nope. Just no. I forgot it.
It's perfectly human to do that, especially with how much we talk.
Just fake a bit of rage. Where you're like, and he was, I'm angry about everything.
Hammers? Yeah, you can use my hammer next time.
I'm sure there have been many points that I've tried to drive home that don't land because it was just something that filled in the blank when there was something else there and I lost it.
Yeah.
Happens.
But to the point, it is true that the left does do things or try to make arguments that absolve them of responsibility.
Of course.
When it comes to adult things and bestows responsibility on children that they could never, ever actually have the ability to take.
I think we talk about the divide in the culture war, and the conversation we were having on the Culture War show this morning about what it means to be left or right. There's varying degrees or varying definitions of what separates left and right, but I largely think it's when you look at what the quote unquote right is today, you have former liberals. It's largely just
100%.
people who are logical, rational, follow the news, and are looking for solutions. And the left is a psychotic murmuration of cult-like lunatics who believe random things that don't make sense.
And how dare you not actually agree with them if you want to be in the left? Otherwise, you're just left out in the cold. So where do you go?
I feel like that's something that I point out a lot with people when they say that's liberal, and I say no, that's leftism. That's not liberalism in many ways, because I still have plenty of things that I'd like to have a discussion about that would have been considered left-leaning ideas.
That's a debate that I gave up a long time ago. I'm of the opinion that liberal doesn't mean leftist, but I'm also not going to fight with everybody, because everybody like is like, oh, own the libs and blah blah blah. You know,
right? It is. What is the word used to describe?
Yeah.
And anybody who says something like leftists and like the liberal side love to use, they have multiple definitions of a single word, but they will apply a different definition to win the debate.
Right.
So they'll say it's the Mountain Bailey. He's a white supremacist. What are you talking about? He's a non-white and he's spoken against white supremacy. No, I mean the classical academic version of white supremacy of privilege from colonizer history. And they're like, okay, shut up.
Okay, that's too far.
It was the first time that somebody like gave me the side eye because they said that that somebody couldn't be racist unless they were white, and I was like, I'm not entertaining that debate. If we can't have a discussion around the idea that everyone can be racist to another person, then we're operating on different wavelengths here. And usually that ends up being why those types of back and forth, even with somebody who you may want to enter into a discussion in good faith with, don't work because you can never get past the actual definitions for the words you're having in the argument.
The purpose for changing the definition of racism was to realign people based on what they were taught. So throughout millennial youth, you're told racism is bad, don't be racist. Then when you get older, you're like, I am not racist, I will try to treat everybody equally. And then some academic comes by or some leftist and they're like, I want you to vote for me. And they say, I don't like your policies. And they go, you're racist. It goes, actually, I'm not. You don't know what racist means. Racist means something different. Now, does that apply to you? Well, it kind of does. So you admit you're racist. That's the point. So they can force people to, to their will.
Well, in much of, at least from my generation, it was about treating everyone equally, and the Martin Luther King approach to race relations, which now they blatantly and openly talk about how that isn't the right approach, and that someone's race is integral to how you're supposed to judge them. So you're trying to rewire the brains of an entire generation. It's why people talk about how the 90s were as great as they were, and in a lot of ways people felt as if racism was largely a non-starter, a non-issue in America, and it's been re-injected into the culture by changing the definition and actually trying to change the way in which an entire generation of people judge those that they interacted with.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.